7 rules for standing your ground. Think about that for a second. How many times in your life have you stayed quiet when you should have spoken up? How many times have you agreed to something just to avoid conflict, even though deep down you knew it wasn't right for you? Those moments don't just disappear, they build up, and over time they shape the kind of life you live. The truth is simple: if you don't learn how to stand your ground, people will keep testing how far you'll bend. They'll take your time, your energy, and your confidence. But when you finally decide that your voice matters, that your boundaries matter, everything changes. In this video, I'm going to share 7 clear rules that will help you protect your peace, respect your time, and prove your strength with action. If you're ready to stop giving in and start taking control, stay with me. This could be the turning point. Would you like me to also create a fresh, psychology-driven ending for this video that makes people want to come back for your next one? Chapter 1. Trust your own voice before you trust the crowd. When you live in a world full of opinions, voices, and constant noise, it becomes easy to get lost in what everybody else says you should do. People will always have something to say about your choices, your direction, your pace, and your results. And if you don't learn to trust your own voice before you trust the crowd, you'll spend your life chasing approval while losing yourself in the process. Standing your ground begins here. It begins with recognizing that your voice matters more than the endless voices around you. It begins with listening to the part of you that knows what you really want, even if the crowd calls it impossible, even if the crowd says it's too late, even if the crowd doesn't understand. Every human being has that inner compass. You've felt it before. It's the quiet pull that tells you what's right for you. It's the gut feeling that says, this is where I should go, or this doesn't feel right. The problem is not that you don't have that voice, it's that you've been trained to ignore it. From the time you were young, you were told to follow the rules, to do what others expect, to not stand out too much, to stay in line. And over the years, that conditioning makes you doubt yourself. So when a big decision comes, instead of trusting your own judgment, you look for approval. You ask, what do you think? You wonder, will they like it? You wait for the crowd to validate what you already know deep inside. But here is the truth: the crowd doesn't live your life. The crowd doesn't feel your regret. The crowd doesn't wake up in your body or go to sleep with your thoughts. You do. And because you do, you must give more weight to your own voice than to the opinions of everyone else. If you don't, you will end up living someone else's life while neglecting your own. Standing your ground is not about being stubborn. It's about clarity. It's about knowing that if you want to move your life forward, you must first believe that your voice counts. The crowd is loud, yes, but being loud doesn't make them right. Popular opinion has ruined many lives because people thought if everyone is saying it, then it must be true. But history proves otherwise. Every great change, every breakthrough, every new direction began with someone who chose to listen to themselves when nobody else believed. They stood on their own 2 feet and said, "This is my decision, and I will own it." If you want to develop resilience, you must start practicing self-trust in small ways. Trusting yourself is not a theory, it's a habit. Every day you get chances to choose between your own voice and the crowd. The moment you say yes to something you don't believe in, you weaken that habit. The moment you follow along just to avoid being different, you silence your own voice a little more. But when you take even one step that is aligned with what you know is right, you strengthen that trust. It builds like a muscle, day by day, choice by choice, until one day you realize you no longer need the crowd to tell you who you are or where you should go. Think about the last time you ignored your own judgment and listened to others. How did it feel afterward? That sinking feeling, that quiet frustration, that sense that you betrayed yourself. You can't escape it. because your inner voice doesn't let you forget. That's the consequence of giving the crowd more power than you give yourself. On the other hand, think about the times you followed your own conviction, even if it was hard, even if you were alone, even if others laughed. You felt stronger, you felt alive. That feeling is not random. It's the reward of self-trust. That's the evidence that trusting your voice leads to growth. One of the most dangerous traps is believing that other people know you better than you know yourself. They don't. They only know the version of you they see from the outside. They don't know the full weight of your dreams. They don't feel the urgency you feel when you wake up in the morning wanting more from life. They don't carry your exact struggles or your exact vision. That belongs only to you. And because it belongs only to you, your voice carries authority that no outside voice can match. But you must be willing to take responsibility for that authority. Trusting your voice doesn't mean you'll always be right. You will make mistakes. You will take risks that don't work out. But here's the difference. When the mistake is yours, you grow from it. You learn. You adapt. You build resilience. When the mistake is the crowd's, you suffer twice. Once because of the failure itself, and once because you didn't even trust yourself enough to make your own choice. Which path builds strength? Which path builds character? The one where you stand on your own decision. There will be pressure. Friends may criticize you, family may doubt you, strangers may judge you. That's the cost of standing your ground. But here's the question you must ask. What is the cost of not standing your ground? What happens when you always bow to the crowd? You lose yourself. You become a shadow of what you could have been. You live safely in other people's expectations, but die quietly inside, because you never gave yourself permission to live your truth. That cost is far heavier. Trusting your own voice doesn't mean you never listen to others. Wisdom is being open to feedback, but not being controlled by it. Take advice, hear opinions, but weigh them against your own truth. If it aligns, use it. If it doesn't, let it go. Standing your ground means you are the final decision maker in your life. Others can advise, but you decide. Self-trust is also connected to self-respect. When you keep ignoring your inner voice, you send yourself a message that says, I don't matter. Over time, that damages your confidence. It weakens your belief in your own ability to handle life. But when you honor your inner voice, you strengthen your confidence. You prove to yourself that you are worth listening to, and the more you practice it, the less the crowd can sway you. This rule, trusting your own voice before you trust the crowd, is foundational for every other part of standing your ground. Without it, you're always shifting, always bending, always waiting for someone else to tell you what to do. But with it, you become steady, you become clear, you become someone who is not easily shaken by noise or doubt. And that clarity changes everything. Imagine waking up tomorrow knowing that your choices are yours, not borrowed from someone else. Imagine walking into a room full of opinions, but being calm because you know your own direction. Imagine building a life that reflects your truth instead of the crowd's approval. That's the power of self-trust. That's the strength of standing your ground. The world doesn't need another person lost in the crowd. It needs people who can think for themselves, people who are not afraid to trust their judgment, people who have the courage to act even when it's not popular. And you can be one of them. You can start right now by making a simple decision. From this moment forward, my voice matters, my judgment counts. I will not silence myself just because the crowd speaks louder. In the end, the people who change their lives and influence others are not the ones who waited for approval. They are the ones who decided to stand their ground, trust themselves, and move forward regardless of the noise. You have that same ability. Don't hand it away. Don't bury it under the weight of other people's voices. Stand strong in your own. That is where your real power lives. And when you do, you will notice something remarkable. The crowd begins to follow the person who no longer needs it. Because deep down, people admire those who stand firm. They respect those who own their choices. They are drawn to those who know who they are. That can be you. But first, you must decide to trust your own voice before you trust the crowd. Chapter 2. Refuse to shrink yourself just to keep peace. Most people wait. They wait for the right mood, the right feeling, the right surge of energy to take action. They tell themselves, when I feel ready, I'll start. They sit still, hoping motivation will suddenly appear and carry them forward. But here's the reality. Waiting for motivation is the reason so many goals die before they even begin. Motivation is not a gift that arrives on schedule. It's not guaranteed. Some days you wake up tired, some days you wake up doubtful, and some days you wake up with no desire at all to move. If you depend on motivation to dictate your life, you will always find yourself at the mercy of your feelings. Standing your ground requires a different approach. You cannot rely on something as unstable as mood or inspiration. Instead, you must create your own drive through deliberate choices, through habits, through action that is not based on how you feel, but on what you decide. Feelings are unpredictable, but discipline is steady. If you learn to act regardless of how you feel, you will begin to take control of your life in a way most people never experience. Think about the times you achieved something meaningful. Was it because you were motivated every step of the way? No, it was because you decided to keep moving when you didn't feel like it. It was because you acted even when it was easier not to. That is what separates people who grow from those who stay stuck. Growth doesn't come from waiting. Growth comes from acting when every part of you says, "Not today." One of the great mistakes people make is thinking motivation is the starting point. They believe first you feel motivated, then you take action, then results follow. But the truth is reversed. First you act, then the action creates momentum, and momentum builds the motivation you thought you needed at the start. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll wait forever. If you move first, the feeling often follows. The person who runs every morning doesn't always feel excited about it. The person who builds a business doesn't wake up every day overflowing with energy. The student who studies for hours doesn't always feel like opening the book. What they all share is this: they stop asking for motivation's permission. They understand that action is the trigger, not the reward. They do it anyway. This is where psychology comes in. The mind looks for comfort. It wants the easiest path. It will tell you stories. You're tired. Rest first. You'll do it tomorrow. You're not ready yet. If you listen to these stories, they become your reality. You train yourself to stop every time it feels uncomfortable. Over time, that becomes a habit, and habits define your life. But the opposite is also true. If you train yourself to act regardless of those stories, your mind adapts. You prove to yourself that you can keep going even when it's hard. That builds a stronger identity, an identity that says, "I don't wait, I create." When you choose to act without waiting for motivation, you experience a shift. Suddenly your energy rises after the action, not before. The workout you didn't want to start gives you energy once you finish. The task you delayed makes you feel accomplished once it's done. The phone call you avoided builds confidence once you make it. The emotion follows the behavior. The fire comes after the spark, not before it. If you want to stand your ground in life, you need to stop chasing the perfect feeling and start designing a system that makes action automatic. Systems don't care if you're motivated. Systems are habits, routines and structures that keep you on track. For example, if you commit to writing for 1 hour each morning, that system carries you whether you feel like it or not. If you decide to exercise at the same time every day, it becomes less about choice and more about routine. Over time, you eliminate the question of "do I feel like it?" and replace it with "this is what I do." That's how professionals operate. That's how progress is sustained. The problem with waiting for motivation is that it always leaves room for excuses. There will always be reasons not to do something. Too tired, too busy, too uncertain, too overwhelmed. Excuses multiply when you wait for feelings to align perfectly. But when you rely on structure instead of inspiration, excuses lose their power. You act because that's the rule you've set for yourself, and each time you follow through, you strengthen your character, you begin to trust yourself. You show yourself that you are capable of acting without external push. Consider how many people let their dreams fade because they kept waiting for the right moment. They thought motivation would arrive tomorrow, or next week, or next year. Before they knew it, time passed, and the dream felt out of reach. That is the silent cost of waiting. Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Opportunities don't wait for you to feel inspired. The world moves on, whether you act or not. That's why the people who succeed are not the ones who are always motivated, but the ones who create momentum by showing up anyway. You don't have to start with giant steps. Standing your ground begins with small, consistent actions that you control. Wake up and commit to one task, even if it's simple. Finish it, and notice how your energy shifts. Then move to the next. Stack these actions, day by day, and you'll see that your life changes, not because you waited for the right feeling, but because you acted in the absence of it. There is power in deciding that you no longer negotiate with yourself. Once the decision is made, you remove the back and forth debate in your mind. You don't argue about whether you feel like it. You don't bargain about doing it later. You simply follow through. That single habit of acting without the need for motivation will transform not only your productivity, but your self-respect. Because every time you keep your word to yourself, you grow stronger. It's important to understand that motivation is fleeting, but discipline is permanent. Motivation can lift you for a moment, but it cannot sustain you for a lifetime. Discipline, however, becomes part of who you are. It gives you freedom because it allows you to act independently of mood. It gives you strength because it makes you reliable to yourself, and it gives you control because it prevents your life from being dictated by circumstances. When you stop waiting for motivation and begin creating it through action, you set yourself apart. You no longer live like most people, stuck in cycles of procrastination, stuck in patterns of waiting, stuck in the hope that tomorrow they'll feel different. You break free from that cycle because you understand the truth. Action creates energy, not the other way around. Think about how this applies to relationships, work, health, or any area of your life. Waiting for motivation to have a hard conversation delays healing. Waiting for motivation to change careers wastes years. Waiting for motivation to take care of your health risks your future. But creating your own drive by choosing action gives you progress now. It keeps you moving forward while others stay stuck. This rule is not about being perfect. You will have days where it feels harder than others, but if you practice showing up consistently, even in small ways, you build a powerful track record. That track record becomes your proof. The proof reminds you, I can act without needing to feel like it. And once you believe that, you become unstoppable. If you want to stand your ground in this world, understand this deeply. You cannot build your life on unstable ground, and motivation is unstable. What you can build on is discipline, commitment, and consistent action. That foundation holds firm when moods shift, when doubts arise, when life gets messy. That foundation makes you strong enough to handle what others cannot. From this moment forward, stop giving away your progress to the weakness of wait. Stop tying your future to a feeling that may or may not show up. Take ownership of your days by choosing to act. Create your own energy through movement. Generate your own drive through consistency.
Build your own strength by honoring your commitments. That is how you take control. That is how you stop waiting. That is how you stand your ground.
Chapter 3. Hold steady when others push to break your limits. There comes a time in life when you feel the pressure from people around you, from situations that seem bigger than you, from voices that try to convince you that you cannot go further than where you stand. That pressure is real. It can come from family expecting you to choose a path you don't believe in. It can come from peers who challenge your choices and try to make you feel small for aiming higher. It can come from society itself, placing limits on what people like you should or shouldn't do. And when you face that pressure, you have two options: bend and surrender, or hold steady and refuse to break. Standing your ground means you choose the second option. You decide that even when others try to push you past your breaking point, you will not let them take your strength. Holding steady is not about resisting every voice or every challenge. It's about knowing where your line is and refusing to let anyone cross it. People test you, sometimes on purpose, sometimes without even realizing it. They push to see if you mean what you say, if you truly believe what you claim, if you will stick to your values when it's inconvenient. The moment you give in, you send a signal, not only to them but to yourself, that your limits are negotiable. And when your limits are negotiable, people learn to keep pushing until you collapse. But when you hold steady, when you stand firm in the face of pressure, you build a reputation of strength. And more importantly, you build an identity of resilience within yourself. Every person has a breaking point, but most reach it not because the pressure was unbearable, but because they never trained themselves to endure. Think about your body. If you never strengthen it, the smallest load can feel impossible. But if you train it consistently, what once seemed heavy becomes manageable. The same is true of your character. The more you practice holding steady under pressure, the stronger you become. The first time you say no when someone tries to manipulate you, it feels hard. The second time, it's still uncomfortable, but easier. Over time you become unshakable. You stop worrying about who will approve and who will not. You stop living at the mercy of others' demands. You develop the quiet strength of someone who knows where they stand. This doesn't mean you will never feel tempted to give in. Pressure will always tempt you. People may use emotion, guilt, or fear to try and get you to move. They may say, if you really cared, you would do this. They may warn you, if you don't go along, you'll be left out. They may even mock you, trying to make you feel foolish for standing firm. But in those moments, you must remind yourself that the cost of bending is far higher than the cost of holding steady. When you bend, you lose self-respect. When you bend, you tell yourself that others' opinions matter more than your principles. When you bend, you weaken your foundation. But when you hold steady, even if you face criticism, you gain something priceless. You prove to yourself that you are stronger than the pressure. To hold steady, you need clarity. You need to know what matters to you before the test comes. If you don't, you will be caught off guard and pulled in directions you never wanted to go. Clarity means taking the time to decide in advance what you will not compromise. It means defining your boundaries, your values and your standards so clearly that when someone tries to push you, you already know where you stand. Without clarity, every push feels confusing. With clarity, the choice is simple. You do not move because you already chose your ground. Another key is learning to stay calm when the pressure rises. People lose control not because the situation is too much, but because their emotions take over. They get angry, defensive or overwhelmed, and in that state, they are more likely to give in. But calmness is a weapon. When you are calm, you think clearly. When you are calm, you send a signal that you are not easily moved. When you are calm, the person trying to push you realizes their tactics will not work. Developing calmness under pressure comes from practice. It comes from reminding yourself, I don't have to react to everything. I choose my response. And when you choose your response, you choose strength. There will be times when holding steady feels lonely. You may lose people who expected you to bend. You may be misunderstood by those who don't see why you won't give in. But understand this, people who leave because you refuse to break were never truly with you in the first place. The ones who respect you, the ones who truly value you, will not ask you to give up your strength to make them comfortable. They will respect your limits, even if they don't agree with them. And those who don't respect them should not have power over your choices. Psychologically, holding steady builds confidence in ways nothing else can. Each time you resist pressure, you teach your mind that you can survive discomfort. You show yourself that you don't need to be controlled by fear of rejection. That lesson builds a deeper sense of power than any external approval ever could. Approval fades, but self-respect stays. Approval changes, but character endures. And character is what makes you unshakable when life gets hard. When others push to break your limits, remember that their push says more about them than it does about you. Some push because they are uncomfortable with your strength. Some push because they want control. Some push because they want control. Some push because they gave up on themselves and cannot stand to see you stand tall. Whatever the reason, it is not your job to bend to their insecurity. Your job is to protect your limits, because those limits guard your growth, your peace, and your direction. This doesn't mean you close yourself off to growth. There is a difference between holding steady in your values and being unwilling to grow. Growth means you expand your skills, your vision, your understanding. But even growth has a foundation. And that foundation must be strong. You cannot grow by giving up the very principles that keep you grounded. You grow by building on them, not by abandoning them. One of the greatest strengths you can develop is patience under pressure. Many times people push because they want a quick reaction. They want you to snap, to give in, to say yes, just to end the discomfort. But patience disarms that strategy. When you can stand still, breathe and let the pressure pass, you often find that it loses its power. Most pressure is temporary. Most demands fade if you don't give them immediate power. Patience allows you to outlast the storm without breaking. You must also understand that life itself will push you. Challenges will come not from people but from circumstances, financial struggles, setbacks, failures, uncertainty. These moments will test you as much as any person ever could. They will ask, how much can you take before you break? And in those times the same principle applies. Hold steady. Do not collapse just because it feels heavy. Remind yourself that difficulty is not permanent. If you hold steady, you will endure it, and when it passes, you will be stronger for it. Every time you hold steady when others push, you earn something you cannot buy. Respect. Not just respect from others, but respect from yourself. You look in the mirror and know you did not give away your power. You know you stood your ground. That feeling is worth more than any temporary comfort you would have gained by surrendering. And it builds on itself. The more you experience it, the more natural it becomes. You stop doubting your strength, because you've proven it to yourself again and again. In the end, holding steady is not about being unkind or being rigid. It is about valuing yourself enough to say, I will not be broken by pressure. It is about teaching others how to treat you by refusing to collapse when they test you. It is about building a character that does not sway with every wind. And it is about choosing long-term strength over short-term relief. The world needs people who can hold steady when tested. It needs people who do not surrender their limits at the first sign of pushback. It needs people who can remain calm, clear, and strong when others try to control them. You can be one of those people.
You can decide today that your limits are not for negotiation, that your strength is not for sale, that your ground is not to be taken by anyone. That decision will not only protect your future, but also inspire others to find their own strength. Stand steady, even when the push feels heavy. Stand steady, even when the voices grow loud. Stand steady, because when you refuse to break, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than the pressure, stronger than the doubt, stronger than the limits others try to place on you. That proof will carry you through the hardest tests and remind you always that your ground is yours to keep.
Chapter 4. Speak with clarity so no one can twist your words. One of the most important parts of standing your ground is learning how to speak in a way that leaves no room for confusion. If you cannot communicate clearly, people will fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. If you leave your words vague, they can be twisted, reshaped, or used against you. The strength of your position often depends not just on what you believe, but on how well you express it. And if you want to protect your ground, you must speak with clarity so that no one can manipulate what you say. Clear speech begins with clear thinking. Most misunderstandings don't come from the words themselves, but from the lack of clarity behind them. When you don't know exactly what you want, you tend to speak in uncertain terms. You use phrases like maybe, I guess, I think so. Those words reveal hesitation, and hesitation invites distortion. Others hear your uncertainty and reshape it to suit their interests. But when you know what you mean and you express it directly, the chances of being misunderstood shrink dramatically. That's why you must take time to know what you stand for before you speak. When your mind is clear, your words become sharp, and sharp words cannot be easily twisted. People often underestimate how much power language holds. A single unclear statement can damage trust. A careless promise can bind you to obligations you never wanted. A vague answer can make others believe you agreed when you never intended to. To avoid this, you need to develop the habit of speaking plainly, using words that are simple, direct, and firm. If you say yes, mean yes. If you say no, mean no. Eliminate the extra layers of soft talk that weaken your message. People respect those who speak with certainty, because certainty shows conviction. Clarity also requires courage. Many people avoid direct speech because they fear how others will react. They soften their words to avoid conflict, or they use indirect phrases so they don't upset anyone. But in trying to keep the peace, they create confusion. And that confusion leads to bigger conflicts later when the truth comes out. Speaking with clarity may feel uncomfortable in the moment, but it saves you from greater pain in the long run. It prevents others from claiming you said something you didn't. It prevents resentment that builds when your unspoken thoughts never match your spoken words. If you want to strengthen this skill, start by practicing in everyday conversation. When someone asks for your opinion, don't hide behind vague phrases. Say exactly what you think in a respectful but direct way. When someone makes a request you don't agree with, say no firmly without adding excuses. When you make a commitment, describe it in specific terms so there is no room for misunderstanding. Over time, this practice trains you to default to clarity instead of vagueness. Clarity also means being careful with promises. One of the fastest ways people lose trust is by overcommitting, or by speaking casually about things they never intend to follow through on. Every promise should be measured. If you agree, make it clear what you are agreeing to and when you can deliver. If you cannot commit, say so up front. That honesty may not please everyone, but it will protect your reputation and make your words more reliable. When people know your words are accurate, they stop trying to twist them because they know you will stand behind them. When you deal with people who try to distort what you say, Clarity becomes your shield. They may take your words out of context, but if your message is clear and consistent, the truth stands stronger than their distortion. That's why consistency is essential. Don't say one thing today and another thing tomorrow. Don't adjust your words depending on who is listening. Consistency shows that your words are not for sale. It shows that your ground is steady. And when people see that steadiness, they stop trying to test you because they know it won't work. Another part of clarity is controlling your tone. Words carry meaning, but tone carries weight. If you deliver strong words with a weak tone, people may dismiss them. If you deliver vague words with a strong tone, people may misinterpret them as something harsher than you intended. The balance is important. Speak with a tone that matches your message, calm, steady, and firm. That way, your words are not only understood, but respected. You also need to avoid over-explaining. Many people, when nervous, use too many words. They try to justify every decision, explain every detail, and soften every edge. But the more you talk, the easier it becomes for others to twist what you say. Clarity is not about saying more, it's about saying enough, directly and confidently. When your answer is short and firm, it leaves little room for manipulation. No, that doesn't work for me. Yes, I can do this by Friday. That's not what I want. Simple statements are harder to distort because they carry no unnecessary opening. Clarity is also tied to self-respect. If you don't respect your own words, no one else will. Every time you speak vaguely to avoid discomfort, you teach yourself that your truth is not important. Every time you say one thing and mean another, you weaken your integrity. But when you speak with clarity, you affirm to yourself that your voice matters. That affirmation builds confidence. It teaches you that you can trust your own expression. And when you trust your expression, others are more likely to trust it too. People often test you with subtle traps. They may ask leading questions, hoping you'll agree to something without realizing it. They may twist your vague answers to suit their needs. They may pretend not to understand, pushing you to explain in ways that weaken your position. That's why clarity is not just a skill, but also a defense. It protects you from manipulation by leaving no gaps for others to exploit. When you are clear, you take away their tools. Speaking with clarity also helps in moments of conflict. Disagreements escalate when communication is unclear. People argue over assumptions, interpretations, and half-heard words. But when you state your position clearly, you eliminate much of the confusion that fuels conflict. Even if the other person disagrees, at least they know exactly where you stand. And often, that alone reduces tension, because people respect boundaries more when they are clearly expressed. Clarity brings freedom. You no longer have to wonder if people misunderstood you. You no longer have to waste energy correcting distortion. You no longer have to fear that your silence will be taken as agreement. When your words are clear, you can stand on them with confidence. They become an extension of your ground, firm, steady, and untouchable. But remember, clarity doesn't mean harshness. You don't need to be cruel to be clear. You can speak directly with kindness. You can say no respectfully. You can state your boundaries without hostility. In fact, the more calm and respectful your clarity, the more powerful it becomes. Because people see that you are not hiding behind anger or avoidance, you are simply being honest. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. At first, it may feel difficult to cut out vague words, to shorten your explanations, to speak directly. But as with any skill, repetition builds comfort. Over time, speaking with clarity stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like your default way of communication. And once it becomes your default, it transforms the way others treat you.
You'll notice that people begin to approach you differently. They ask more carefully because they know you will give a clear answer. They respect your time more because they know you won't agree to things you don't mean. They trust your word more because they know you say only what you intend to keep. That change in how others treat you is the reflection of the change you built within yourself. Standing your ground requires many things: discipline, resilience, courage. But without clarity, those qualities lose power. Because if your words can be twisted, your ground can be shaken. If your voice is unclear, your stance is uncertain. But when your words are precise, when your message is direct, when your truth is spoken without confusion, you become far more difficult to move. Your ground becomes not only something you stand on, but something you defend with the power of clear expression. From this point on, make clarity your rule. Take the time to know what you mean before you speak. Cut out the unnecessary words that weaken your message. Deliver your truth with calm, steady confidence. Stop hiding behind vague language. Stop leaving room for others to decide what you meant. Own your words as much as you own your actions. Because when your words cannot be twisted, neither can your ground.
Chapter 5. Protect your time like it is your lifeline. Time is the one resource that can never be replaced. You can rebuild money after losing it. You can repair your health after neglecting it. You can even rebuild relationships that have been broken. But the hours that pass today will never return tomorrow. Once they are gone forever. This is why protecting your time is not just important, it is essential if you want to stand your ground and create a life that reflects your values. If you treat your time carelessly, people will take it from you. If you treat your time like it's endless, life will slip through your fingers without you even noticing. You must begin to see time as your lifeline, because that is exactly what it is. Every day you are given 24 hours. That is the one gift equally distributed to every person on earth. The difference between those who build meaningful lives and those who remain stuck is not that one has more time than the other. It's that one chooses to protect it, to guard it, to use it deliberately. The world is full of distractions. Everyone wants a piece of your attention. Some want your time for their gain. Some waste it out of habit, and some unknowingly pull you away from what truly matters. If you don't defend your time, you'll spend most of your life serving other people's agendas instead of building your own. Protecting your time starts with recognizing its value. Too many people say yes without thinking. They agree to commitments they don't want. They sit in conversations that go nowhere. They scroll endlessly on screens and call it relaxation, while hours disappear. The tragedy is not just the lost minutes, it's what those minutes could have built: a book unwritten, a skill unlearned, a connection not nurtured, a healthy choice skipped. Protecting your time means refusing to let it vanish in places that don't return value to your life. When you begin to treat time like it's your lifeline, your decisions shift. You no longer say yes to everything. You pause and ask, is this worth an hour of my life? That single question can change everything. Imagine your hours as currency, because that's exactly what they are. Would you hand over $100 without thinking? Would you give away your savings to someone with no return? If not, then why give away your time so easily? Guarding your hours with the same seriousness you would guard your money is one of the strongest habits you can build. But this does not mean you should live rigidly, cutting out all joy. Protecting your time doesn't mean saying no to rest or connection or laughter. It means saying no to waste. It means making sure your hours feed your growth, your health, your relationships, and your future. Rest, when chosen deliberately, is not waste. It is renewal. Time with loved ones is not waste. It is an investment in connection. Waste is giving hours to things that drain you, weaken you, or distract you from your purpose. The challenge is that many people won't respect your time unless you do. They will ask for meetings that don't matter. They will invite you into conversations filled with gossip. They will push you to join them in habits that do nothing for your growth. And unless you set clear boundaries, they will keep taking. Protecting your time requires courage to say no, without guilt. That no is not rejection. It is protection. It is the defense of your lifeline. You must understand that every yes is also a no. Saying yes to something unimportant means saying no to something important. Once you see that clearly, protecting your time becomes non-negotiable. Think about how quickly days become months and months become years. Many people wake up one day wondering where the time went, why they never started the project they dreamed about, why they never took care of their health, why their relationships weakened. The answer is often simple. They didn't protect their hours. They thought they had more time than they did. But time is unforgiving. It slips away quietly if you don't guard it, and when it's gone, you can never call it back. One of the most practical ways to protect your time is to plan it. A planned day is a protected day. When you decide in advance how your hours will be spent, you take back control. Without a plan, your time is open to invasion. Anyone can step in, anything can pull you away, and distractions win. But with a plan, you already know what matters, and that knowledge acts as a shield. Planning does not mean filling every minute. It means choosing deliberately where your focus goes. That simple act of deciding gives you power over your lifeline. Another powerful tool is awareness. Many people don't realize how much time they waste because they don't track it. Hours slip by unnoticed, and they convince themselves they were productive when they were not. Protecting your time means becoming aware of where it goes. Ask yourself often, did this hour build me, drain me, or leave me stuck? Once you ask that question consistently, you begin to see patterns. You notice who respects your time and who doesn't. You notice which activities give you progress and which ones steal your energy. That awareness is the beginning of change. But awareness alone is not enough. You must take action to cut away the waste. This can feel uncomfortable. It may mean stepping back from people who constantly demand your hours without giving value in return. It may mean turning off distractions that eat away your focus. It may mean declining opportunities that sound good on the surface, but don't align with your purpose. Each cut is a decision to protect your future. Each boundary is a reminder that your life is worth guarding. There will be resistance. People may not like that you no longer give your time so freely. They may accuse you of being selfish or distant. But understand this, protecting your time is not selfish. It is responsible. You cannot serve others well if your own hours are wasted. You cannot build anything meaningful if your energy is scattered everywhere. By guarding your time, you actually give more to the world, because what you produce, what you create, what you build, becomes stronger when it comes from protected, focused hours. The truth is, time is the great equalizer. No matter how wealthy or powerful someone is, they cannot buy more hours in a day. They can only choose how to spend them. That puts you on equal ground with anyone. The question is not how much time you have, it's how much you protect. Some people achieve extraordinary results, not because they had more hours, but because they treated their hours as sacred. They didn't waste them. They didn't trade them for things that didn't matter. They guarded them and poured them into what mattered most. Protecting your time also requires honesty with yourself. You must be willing to admit when you are the one wasting it. It's easy to blame others for taking your hours, but sometimes it's your own habits that drain them. Procrastination, distraction, laziness, these are thieves that steal from you daily if you allow them. Guarding your time means taking responsibility. It means catching yourself when you're drifting and pulling yourself back to focus. It means admitting, I am the one letting my time slip, and then choosing differently.
That honesty is not comfortable, but it is necessary. When you begin to live this way, you feel the difference. Your days stop blending together. You end each one with a sense of progress, because your hours were spent deliberately. You begin to notice more energy, more results, more fulfillment, and people start noticing too. They see that you are not always available, that you value your time, and in turn they value it more as well. You teach others how to treat your time by how you treat it yourself. Time will always be limited. You cannot expand it, but you can protect it. The stronger your boundaries, the more control you have, the clearer your priorities, the easier it becomes to say no to what doesn't matter, and the more disciplined your actions, the more life you build within the hours you are given. Every hour is a choice. Every choice is either an investment or a waste. Stand your ground by protecting your time. Guard it as if your life depends on it, because it does. Every goal, every dream, every relationship, every achievement depends on how you use your hours. If you don't guard them, no one will. But if you do, you can build a life that reflects your highest values, a life that is not wasted, a life that matters. Protect your time like it is your lifeline, because in truth it is.
Chapter 6. Stop explaining yourself to those who never listen. One of the easiest ways to drain your energy and weaken your ground is to spend your time explaining yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. There are individuals who ask questions not because they want clarity, but because they want control. They challenge your choices, not to learn from them, but to discredit them. They dismiss your perspective before you even finish speaking. And if you allow yourself to keep explaining, you end up in endless circles of frustration, wasting words on ears that are closed. Standing your ground means recognizing when your voice is falling on deaf ears and choosing to stop defending yourself where your truth will never be valued. Every person has a right to their own path. That path may not make sense to everyone around you. It may not fit their expectations, their worldview, or their beliefs about what is possible. But your life is not theirs to live. And yet, many people will demand explanations every time you step outside the line they've drawn for you. Why are you doing this? Why don't you do it my way? Why can't you just be like everyone else? At first you may feel tempted to explain, to lay out your reasons, to justify your decisions. But what you'll discover quickly is that people who don't want to listen will never be satisfied with any explanation you give. They will find another angle to question, another way to twist your words, another argument to bring you back under their control. You owe people respect, but you do not owe endless explanations. Respect means speaking honestly and directly when it's appropriate. But respect for yourself means knowing when to stop. If someone repeatedly dismisses your words, they are showing you that they are not interested in understanding. They are interested in dominating the conversation. Continuing to explain in those moments is not strength. It is surrender. It gives them power over your energy while taking nothing away from their resistance. When you stop explaining yourself to people who never listen, you reclaim valuable time and emotional strength. You begin to realize that not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Your reasons are yours, your convictions are yours, and your life is yours. Those who care, who genuinely want to understand, will listen when you speak. They may not agree, but they will respect your right to choose. Those who never listen have already decided against you before you open your mouth. Trying to win them over is like pouring water into a cup with a hole at the bottom. No matter how much you give, it never fills. There is a psychological trap in over-explaining. The trap is rooted in the desire for approval. When you want someone to validate your choice, you try harder and harder to convince them. You repeat yourself, you soften your stance. You start doubting whether you even made the right choice. This trap makes you forget that you don't need their permission to move forward. The very act of over-explaining puts you in a weaker position because it signals that you are seeking approval instead of standing firmly in your decision. Strong people don't beg to be understood. They speak once with clarity, and if someone refuses to hear it, they move forward anyway. Another danger of over-explaining is that it drains your focus. You only have so much energy each day, and when you spend it on people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you rob yourself of the energy needed to actually live your life. Think about it after a long conversation where you tried to justify yourself to someone unwilling to listen. How do you feel? Tired, frustrated, resentful. None of those emotions help you progress. But when you refuse to enter that cycle, you save your energy for things that matter: your growth, your goals, your relationships with people who do listen and do care. Stopping the habit of explaining yourself to those who never listen requires confidence. It requires the courage to say, "This is my decision, and I don't need to debate it with you." It requires being comfortable with disagreement. Not everyone will like your choices. Not everyone will understand your path, but standing your ground means being at peace with that. You cannot build a meaningful life if you are constantly bending to gain approval. This doesn't mean you close your ears to all feedback. Feedback from people who genuinely care can be invaluable, but you know the difference between feedback and dismissal. Feedback seeks to help. Dismissal seeks to tear down. Feedback respects your voice. Dismissal ignores it. The people who give real feedback are the ones worth explaining to, because they listen with the intent to support, even if they challenge you. The others, the ones who talk over you, mock you, or reject you without thought, are not your audience. Stop giving them that power. Sometimes the people who never listen are the ones closest to you. That can be the hardest part. It may be family members, friends, or colleagues, and because you care about them, you feel a stronger urge to explain. But here too, you must recognize the limit. Caring about someone does not mean allowing them to silence your truth. You can love them and still refuse to justify your every step. In fact, setting that boundary is often the only way to maintain respect in the relationship. Otherwise, resentment grows, and resentment destroys connection faster than disagreement ever could. The ability to stop over-explaining also communicates strength. When others see that you state your truth once and then move forward without begging to be understood, they begin to respect you more. They may not agree, but they recognize that you are not dependent on their validation, and that independence is powerful. People respect those who respect themselves. They test boundaries less when they see you are unwilling to collapse under pressure. The reality is, people who never listen often don't want answers. They want control. They challenge you not because they seek truth, but because they seek to impose their view. Explaining endlessly plays into that game. It keeps you stuck in their frame. But when you stop explaining, you step outside that game entirely. You say, "I choose my own frame. I choose my own ground." That is where freedom begins. If you find yourself struggling to let go of the need to explain, remind yourself of this. Your results will speak louder than your reasoning. You don't need to argue with people about whether your path is right. You only need to live. Over time, the life you build becomes evidence stronger than any explanation could. And even if they never acknowledge it, you will know the truth. You stood your ground without wasting energy on those who refuse to see. Protect your voice by choosing where to spend it. Protect your energy by refusing to pour it into closed ears. Protect your progress by not getting trapped in endless debates with those who have already made up their minds. The moment you stop explaining yourself to people who never listen, you reclaim not only your time, but also your strength. You shift from seeking approval to building your life. You shift from defending to progressing. You shift from weakness to power. So the next time someone challenges you without respect, remember that you do not need to prove yourself to them. Speak your truth once, clearly and calmly. If they dismiss it, let their dismissal be theirs, not yours. Stand steady in your choice. Move forward with your actions. Let your life be the answer they cannot twist, because the people who truly matter will listen, and those who refuse were never meant to hold that much space in your journey. Chapter 7. Hold firm when pressure wants you to surrender. There will always come moments when life tests how much strength you truly have. It might be during a setback that feels overwhelming, when everything you worked for seems like it is slipping away. It might be in a relationship where someone tries to break your will and push you into agreeing to something you know is wrong for you. It might be at work when the pressure piles up, deadlines close in, and your confidence begins to crack. In those moments, the urge to surrender can feel powerful. The thought of giving in whispers promises of relief. If you quit, this weight will be gone. But the truth is, every time you surrender to pressure that goes against your values or your goals, you weaken yourself. You send a message to your mind and spirit that you cannot endure. And once that pattern begins, pressure learns that all it needs to do to control you is push hard enough. Holding firm is the antidote. Holding firm is the choice to say, I will not be broken by this. Pressure is not always loud. Sometimes it comes quietly in the form of doubt. That small voice inside says, you don't have what it takes. Other times it comes from people who question your direction. Why are you working so hard? Why don't you settle like everyone else? And sometimes it is life itself, pressing against you with difficulties, bills stacking up, health challenges, long nights of effort that don't yet show results. Pressure wears many faces, but the purpose is always the same, to see if you will hold your ground or give it away. When you hold firm, something powerful happens. You show yourself that you are stronger than the circumstances pressing down on you. You prove that you can endure discomfort without collapsing. And with every test you pass, your resilience grows. The ability to stand tall under pressure is not built in a single day. It is built through repeated practice of saying no to surrender. Each time you endure, you carve strength deeper into your character. Each time you refuse to quit, you add another layer to the foundation of your life. The human mind and body adapt to stress. Just as a muscle grows when pushed with weight, your spirit grows when pushed with difficulty. But the muscle only grows if you resist the weight, not if you drop it at the first sign of strain. Life works the same way. The pressure is not meant to destroy you, it is meant to develop you. But it can only develop you if you hold steady long enough for growth to happen. That is why so many people remain weak. They surrender too soon. They want the comfort of escape more than the growth of endurance, and comfort never produces strength. One of the keys to holding firm is perspective. When you see pressure only as pain, you will naturally want to escape it. But when you see it as training, you gain a reason to endure. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what is this building in me? That shift changes everything. Suddenly, the pressure is no longer an enemy, but a forge. It is shaping your patience, your discipline, your willpower. It is preparing you for larger challenges ahead. People who cannot endure small pressures cannot handle great responsibilities. But when you train yourself to hold firm, you qualify yourself for bigger roles, bigger opportunities, and bigger victory. Another way to strengthen your ability to resist surrender is by defining in advance what you are unwilling to compromise. If you wait until you are under pressure to decide what matters most, you are more likely to fold. But if you know beforehand that certain values are non-negotiable, your integrity, your commitment, your health, your mission, then when the pressure arrives, your decision has already been made. You do not have to argue with yourself about whether to surrender. The answer is clear before the test begins. That clarity becomes your anchor. There will always be people who expect you to give in. They might say, why don't you just take the easy way? Or you're wasting your time trying so hard. Sometimes they are not even trying to harm you. They just cannot imagine holding firm themselves, so they project that weakness onto you.
If you allow their words to influence you, you'll start seeing surrender as the natural choice. But when you surround yourself with people who respect strength, who live with discipline, who hold firm in their own lives, their example reminds you that surrender is not the only option. You realize that strength is possible, and that realization fuels your own. The danger of surrender is not only the loss of progress, it is the loss of self-belief. Every time you surrender to pressure, you tell yourself, "I can't handle this." That thought stays with you. It creeps into the next challenge, making it harder to stand strong. Over time, surrender becomes a habit, and that habit becomes identity. You start to see yourself as someone who always gives in, but the opposite is also true. Every time you hold firm, you build evidence that you are capable. That evidence carries forward into the next challenge, making it easier to endure. Over time, endurance becomes the habit, and resilience becomes the identity. It is not enough to hold firm only when the stakes are big. The small moments matter just as much. When you choose not to quit halfway through a workout, you train yourself. When you finish the project even though you feel tired, you train yourself. When you say no to temptation that would weaken your values, you train yourself. Each of these small moments adds to your reservoir of strength. Then when the big test arrives, you already know how to endure, because you have been practicing it daily. Calmness is one of the most underrated tools for holding firm. Pressure often works by creating urgency and panic. It tries to make you believe that you must react right now, that surrender will relieve the tension instantly. But if you can breathe, pause, and stay calm, the pressure loses its grip. Calmness allows you to think clearly, to remember your purpose, and to act with intention instead of impulse. This kind of calm strength sends a message not only to others, but to yourself. I am not moved by urgency, I am guided by principle. The truth is, surrender is often a shortcut. It promises quick relief, but robs you of long-term growth. Holding firm may bring short-term discomfort, but it delivers lasting power. Think of all the opportunities people miss because they surrendered too soon. Businesses abandoned after the first setback. Relationships ended without real effort. Goals dropped after the first failure. If they had held firm a little longer, they might have broken through, but because they surrendered, they never discovered what they were capable of. That is the silent tragedy of surrender. It hides your true potential from you. Holding firm also builds respect. People notice who can endure pressure without breaking. They see who stays consistent when others collapse. That respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned by demonstrating strength. And it begins not in public moments, but in private ones, when no one is watching. If you can resist surrender in those moments, you are building the foundation of respect that others will see later. As you continue to practice this rule, you begin to notice a change in how pressure feels. At first it seems unbearable, but as you endure, you discover that much of pressure is an illusion. It feels bigger than it is because your mind magnifies it, but once you hold firm, the illusion fades, and you realize that you are always stronger than you thought. That realization is life-changing. It teaches you that most of the limits you believed in were not real. They were tests, designed to see if you would stand or fall. Life will never stop testing you. There will always be pressure in different forms, and at different levels. But if you commit to holding firm, pressure will no longer control you. It may challenge you, but it cannot defeat you. It may push against you, but it cannot break you. You become someone who is defined not by surrender but by strength. And that strength will carry you through situations that would have destroyed the weaker version of yourself. Your ability to hold firm when pressure wants you to surrender will shape the quality of your life. It will determine how much you accomplish, how much respect you earn, and how much belief you build in yourself. Every time you stand tall in the face of pressure, you add another brick to the fortress of your character. And over time that fortress becomes unshakable. The next time you feel pressure pushing against you, remember that it is only a test. It is asking, will you surrender? Or will you hold firm? Choose to hold firm. Choose to prove to yourself that your ground cannot be taken. Choose strength over surrender, endurance over escape, resilience over weakness, because when you hold firm, you not only protect your present, you also build a future where pressure no longer rules you.
Chapter 8. Decide your worth and never bargain it away. Your life will only rise to the level of the worth you decide for yourself. The truth is, the world is quick to put a price tag on you. Some will measure you by your mistakes, others by your background, and many by what you can do for them. If you let the world set your worth, you will always be at risk of being undervalued, underpaid, and underappreciated. Standing your ground means drawing a clear line here. You must decide your worth and never bargain it away, because if you don't, others will gladly do it for you, and they will do it in a way that benefits them, not you. Your worth is not something someone else grants you. It is not determined by applause or recognition. It is not defined by promotions, likes, or compliments. Those things feel good, but they are fleeting. The real measure of worth comes from the value you place on yourself. When you see yourself as valuable, you carry yourself differently, you speak differently, you accept and reject things differently. But when you doubt your value, you end up taking whatever is offered, even when it is less than you deserve. And once you accept less, the pattern continues. People treat you according to the standard you allow. This is why self-respect is not optional. It is the foundation of your worth. Every decision you make about how you spend your time, who you let into your life, and what you accept from others, is a reflection of how much value you place on yourself. If you decide you are worth little, you will accept disrespect. If you decide you are worth a lot, you will walk away from anything that does not honor you. That decision sets the tone for your entire life. The danger of bargaining away your worth is that it happens gradually. It doesn't usually begin with one huge compromise. It starts small, accepting unfair treatment at work, staying silent when disrespected, tolerating relationships that drain you. Each small bargain chips away at your self-respect until you wake up one day realizing you've given away far too much. By then, others have learned to expect it. They know you will bend. They know you will settle. They know you will keep lowering your standard. That is why you must decide early what you will and will not accept. When you know your worth, saying no becomes easier. You stop apologizing for having standards. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your energy. You understand that your time, your skills, and your presence are valuable, and valuable things are not given away cheaply. Think about it. If you had something rare and precious in your hands, would you bargain it away for nothing? Of course not. But that's exactly what people do with their lives when they fail to recognize their worth. They give away years to people who don't respect them. They give away talent to jobs that exploit them. They give away energy to habits that weaken them. Deciding your worth means you no longer allow that. One of the clearest signs that you've set your worth is the boundaries you enforce. Boundaries are not walls. They are declarations of value. They say, this is how I allow myself to be treated. This is what I give. This is what I won't tolerate. People may not like your boundaries, especially if they benefited from you having none, but boundaries are not about pleasing others. They are about protecting yourself. And once people see that you take your worth seriously, many of them will begin to respect you more. Those who don't respect it will fall away, and that is a gift, not a loss. Another important part of this rule is not lowering your worth in moments of desperation. Life will test you with times when you feel like you need approval, opportunities, or relationships so badly that you're tempted to accept less than you deserve. Those are the most dangerous moments, because once you set the pattern of settling, it becomes harder to climb back up. You must remind yourself
that temporary discomfort is better than permanent disrespect. Waiting for the right opportunity is better than locking yourself into the wrong one. Walking away from someone who does not value you is better than staying and bargaining away your self-respect. Your worth is not just about how you let others treat you, it's also about how you treat yourself. Do you invest in your own growth, or do you neglect yourself while serving everyone else? Do you take care of your body, your mind and your spirit, or do you burn yourself out chasing validation? If you neglect yourself, you send a signal to others that you are not valuable. But when you prioritize your own growth and well-being, you remind yourself daily of your worth. And when you live that way, people notice. They may not always agree with your choices, but they will respect them because they see that you respect yourself. You must also understand that worth is not about arrogance. Deciding your worth is not claiming you are better than others. It is simply saying, I am not for sale at a discount. It is saying, I value myself enough to refuse disrespect. True self-worth is quiet confidence. It doesn't need to boast. It doesn't need to scream. It simply shows in the way you live, the way you walk, the way you respond to challenge. One of the strongest lessons you can learn is that not everyone will see your worth, and that is okay. Some people will underestimate you, some will dismiss you, some will even try to convince you that you are less than you are. None of that matters if you already decided your worth for yourself, because when you know your worth, you no longer seek constant validation. You no longer explain yourself endlessly. You no longer explain yourself endlessly. You no longer beg for recognition. You understand that your value does not decrease based on someone else's inability to see it. Psychologically, deciding your worth creates stability. Instead of swinging between confidence and insecurity, depending on others' opinions, you begin to carry a steady sense of self. That steadiness protects you from manipulation. People who know their worth cannot be guilt-tripped into things they don't want. They cannot be easily pressured into surrender. They cannot be cheaply bought with shallow praise. Their self-worth is rooted, not floating. That is the kind of strength that makes a person unshakable. This rule also applies to how you use your skills and talents. If you undervalue your work, others will too. If you downplay your abilities, others will not see them. If you charge too little for your effort, people will assume it is worth little. Decide the value of what you bring to the table, and don't bargain it down just because someone doesn't want to pay the price. If you accept less, that becomes the standard. But if you hold firm, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right rewards will eventually meet you at your level. There is freedom in this. When you stop bargaining away your worth, you no longer feel trapped by every opinion or opportunity. You understand that you don't have to take everything offered. You can walk away. You can wait. You can demand better. That freedom makes you stronger, because it puts you back in control of your choices. Instead of living by desperation, you begin to live by principle. This principle will not always be easy to apply. Sometimes you will doubt yourself. Sometimes the pressure to settle will feel overwhelming. Sometimes it will seem like lowering your worth is the only way forward. But remember, every time you refuse to bargain, you strengthen your foundation. Every time you walk away from less than you deserve, you prove to yourself that you are serious about your life. That proof is worth more than any temporary comfort you would have gained by settling. In the end, standing your ground is impossible without this step, because if you don't decide your worth, others will decide it for you, and they will always decide it too low. If you don't protect your value, others will take advantage of it until there is nothing left. But when you decide your worth and refuse to bargain it away, you not only protect yourself, you inspire others to do the same. You set an example of strength, confidence, and dignity, and that is the kind of ground no one can take from you.
Chapter 9. Walk away the moment respect leaves the room. Respect is the foundation of every meaningful connection in life. Whether it is with friends, family, colleagues, or even strangers, Respect determines how far a relationship can go and how safe you feel within it. Without respect, even the closest bond will eventually collapse. Many people ignore the early signs when respect begins to fade. They tell themselves it's not a big deal, that it will get better, or that they just need to be more patient. But here's the truth. The moment respect disappears, the relationship is already broken. If you choose to stay in a place where you are not respected, you are silently agreeing that your dignity does not matter. Standing your ground means refusing to stay in spaces where respect no longer lives. The moment it leaves the room, you walk away. Respect is not complicated. It shows in tone, in words, in actions. It is how people listen when you speak, how they treat your time, how they regard your boundaries. When someone respects you, you feel safe to express yourself. You feel seen and valued. But when respect vanishes, the atmosphere changes. Conversations turn sharp. Your presence is taken for granted. Your boundaries are crossed without hesitation. If you accept that treatment, you are teaching others that disrespect is allowed. And once that becomes the standard, it rarely changes. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to regain the respect that was lost. Walking away in the absence of respect is not about anger or pride. It is about self-preservation. Your confidence, your peace, and your sense of worth depend on it. When you remain in situations where respect is gone, you slowly lose trust in yourself. You start questioning whether you deserve better. You start tolerating behaviors that chip away at your self-esteem. Over time, that damage builds, and it becomes harder to recover. But when you choose to leave the moment respect disappears, you send a message to yourself that your dignity is not up for negotiation. That message is powerful. It strengthens you for every future decision. It is important to understand that disrespect does not always come in obvious forms. Sometimes it is subtle, a dismissive glance, constant interruptions, a refusal to take your words seriously. Sometimes it shows up in small but repeated actions, lateness that ignores your time, promises broken without apology, jokes made at your expense. These moments may seem minor, but together they reveal a truth: you are not valued. And once you see that truth, you must act. Excuses like "that's just how they are," or "it's not worth making a big deal about," only delay the inevitable, because disrespect, if tolerated, always grows. People often struggle to walk away because of fear of being alone, fear of losing opportunities, fear of conflict. But ask yourself, what is the cost of staying where you are not respected? The cost is your peace of mind. The cost is the quiet erosion of your confidence. The cost is years of your life spent in environments that diminish you. Walking away is not loss. It is protection. It is choosing yourself over a situation that does not honor you. You must also remember that respect is mutual. It is not only about how others treat you, but also how you treat them. When you give respect freely and consistently, you set the standard. People then reveal themselves. Some will match it, and some will not. Those who do not are showing you clearly that they are not meant to remain close. You cannot force someone to value you. No amount of explaining, pleading, or proving yourself will create respect where there is none. Respect is a choice. If they choose not to give it, your choice must be to walk away. There will be voices that tell you to stay. They will say you are overreacting, that you should tolerate it, that nobody is perfect. But there is a difference between imperfection and disrespect. Everyone makes mistakes, but when respect is present, mistakes are acknowledged, and amends are made. When respect is gone, there is no accountability. The behavior continues because the other person does not believe you will ever leave. That is why walking away is so important. It shows them, and more importantly yourself, that there is a line that cannot be crossed without consequence. You may feel guilty at first. Walking away can feel like betrayal,
especially if it is someone close to you, but guilt fades. What doesn't fade is the damage caused by staying where you are not valued. Over time, that damage becomes resentment, and resentment poisons everything. Walking away, though painful, brings healing. It frees you to find spaces where respect is alive, where you are valued, and where your presence is treated as important. Another reason people stay is hope. They hope the other person will change. They hope the environment will improve. But hope without action is wasted time. Change rarely comes when there is no consequence for disrespect. Why would someone change if they can treat you poorly and still keep your presence? Your willingness to stay teaches them that their behavior is acceptable. Walking away, on the other hand, creates the possibility of change. Not because you demanded it, but because you refused to tolerate anything less. And even if change never comes, you have already chosen to protect your dignity. Walking away does not always mean dramatic exits or burned bridges. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is simply reducing your availability, saying no more often, or creating distance. Sometimes it is choosing silence instead of arguing, because you know your words will not be valued. The form doesn't matter. What matters is the principle. The moment respect leaves, you leave with it. You don't stay to bargain. You don't stay to plead. You don't stay to prove your worth. You simply choose yourself. This choice is not only about relationships with others, it also applies to environments, workplaces that exploit you, communities that belittle you, groups that drain you. If respect is absent, staying will cost you more than you can afford. Protect your ground by leaving spaces that fail to honor you. The opportunities you lose by walking away will be replaced with better ones, because when you make space by removing what is harmful, you create room for what is healthy. Over time, this principle becomes a filter for your life. You stop wasting energy on relationships and environments that cannot see your value. You stop fighting battles with people who were never on your side. You stop begging for basic decency. Instead, you invest in spaces where you are heard, supported, and respected. That shift transforms not only your outer world, but also your inner world. Your confidence grows, your peace returns, your strength multiplies, because every time you walk away from disrespect, you remind yourself that you are worth more. It takes courage to walk away, but courage is built by action. The first time is the hardest, but once you experience the freedom it brings, you realize it was the right choice. You realize that your life is too short to spend in rooms that belittle you. You realize that walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. And with each step you take out of disrespect, you step closer to a life of dignity, strength, and real connection. So when respect leaves the room, don't hesitate, don't wait for it to return. Don't convince yourself to endure just a little longer. Walk away, protect your dignity, guard your peace, stand your ground, because the moment you allow disrespect, you invite more of it. But the moment you leave, you make a statement that will echo in every future decision. My worth is not up for negotiation.
Chapter 10. Prove your strength by choosing discipline over excuses. Strength is not measured by how loud you speak, how tough you look, or how much you can force your way through life. True strength is revealed in the quiet, consistent choices you make every day. It shows in whether you choose discipline or whether you choose excuses. Excuses are easy. They are the path most people take. They are the reasons given for why something cannot be done, why something must be delayed, why effort should be avoided. Excuses sound convincing in the moment, but they always rob you of progress. Discipline, on the other hand, is difficult at first, but rewarding in the end. It is the decision to do what must be done regardless of how you feel. And every time you choose discipline over excuses, you prove your strength, not to the world first, but to yourself. Excuses come in many forms. Sometimes they sound like "I don't have time." Other times they show up as "I'm too tired," or I'll start tomorrow. They can be dressed up as logic or disguised as self-care, but at their core, they are the same thing: avoidance of responsibility. The danger with excuses is that they feel safe. They allow you to escape the discomfort of action. But that safety is false. It is a trap that keeps you stuck in the same place while convincing you that you had a valid reason to stay there. The truth is, the longer you rely on excuses, the weaker you become. You weaken your belief in yourself, you weaken your habits, and you weaken your ability to face challenges. Discipline is the opposite. It is the practice of doing what needs to be done no matter the circumstances. It is waking up early when you want to stay in bed. It is following through on your word when it would be easier to quit. It is saying no to temptation because you value the future more than the moment. Discipline is not glamorous. It is often lonely, repetitive, and demanding. But it builds something excuses never will: self-respect. When you live with discipline, you look in the mirror and know you can count on yourself. That trust in yourself is one of the most powerful forms of strength a person can ever develop. Think about how life changes when you let excuses lead. Opportunities slip away. Dreams stay on the shelf. Potential remains untouched. Then think about how life changes when discipline leads. Small daily actions compound into progress. Habits form that carry you even on days when motivation is gone. Goals that once felt impossible begin to feel natural because you work toward them step by step. Discipline doesn't just change what you achieve, it changes who you become. It transforms you into someone reliable, steady, and strong. Choosing discipline over excuses is not something you do once. It is a decision you make repeatedly, sometimes many times in a single day. Each moment you face the choice, you are at a crossroads. One path takes you backward, the other moves you forward, and though excuses may feel easier in the moment, discipline always leads to growth. The strength you build through discipline doesn't fade when circumstances change. It becomes part of your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who does what needs to be done, not someone who looks for reasons to avoid it. That shift in identity is where lasting transformation begins. The reason so many people stay stuck is that they underestimate how damaging excuses are. They think skipping one workout, delaying one project, or avoiding one difficult conversation is harmless. But excuses multiply. Once you give yourself permission to avoid one responsibility, the next one becomes easier to avoid. Soon, avoidance becomes a habit, and that habit shapes your life. Discipline works the same way, but in the opposite direction. One disciplined choice leads to another. Each success gives you proof that you are capable. Over time, discipline becomes natural, and excuses lose their power. When you examine your own life, you'll notice that the moments you feel most proud of yourself are not the moments of comfort, but the moments of discipline. The day you resisted the temptation to quit, the day you pushed through fear and acted anyway, the day you did what was necessary even though it was hard. Those are the days that stand out. They remind you of your strength. Excuses, on the other hand, always bring regret. They leave you wishing you had done more, wishing you had acted sooner, wishing you had shown up differently. If you want a life free of regret, discipline is the path. It is important to understand that discipline does not remove difficulty. It teaches you how to handle it. Life will always bring challenges. Excuses pretend to make them disappear, but they only make them grow larger. Discipline does not run from challenges. It faces them head-on. It says, "This will be hard, but I will do it anyway." That attitude builds resilience, and resilience is what allows you to stand your ground no matter what comes. Discipline also brings freedom. It may sound strange, but it is true. Excuses chain you to weakness. They trap you in cycles of delay and regret. Discipline, though demanding, gives you freedom from guilt, freedom from wasted time, and freedom from dependence on external factors. When you live with discipline, you are no longer controlled by your moods, your doubts, or your laziness. You become free because you control yourself. That kind of freedom is one of the greatest strengths you can achieve. You don't need to start with massive changes to build discipline. Start small. Do the things you know you've been avoiding. Keep the promises you make to yourself, no matter how minor they seem. Wake up when you say you will. Finish what you start. Over time, those small acts compound into unshakable strength. And the more evidence you gather of your ability to follow through, the more your belief in yourself grows. Belief is built, not borrowed. And the way you build it is by choosing discipline, again and again, until excuses no longer define you. Excuses are rooted in fear, fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of judgment, but discipline is rooted in courage. Every time you choose discipline, you are proving that your goals are more important than your fears. You are proving that your future matters more than your comfort. That courage compounds, and it spreads into every part of your life. You stop hiding behind reasons and start facing reality. You stop telling yourself stories and start writing a new one with your actions. If you want to see where your life will be 5 years from now, look at the choices you are making today. Are you building a life on excuses, or are you building a life on discipline? The answer is clear in your daily actions. Every excuse is a withdrawal from your future. Every disciplined choice is a deposit into it. Over time, those deposits create wealth. Not just financial but emotional, physical and spiritual wealth. That is what discipline builds. Excuses leave you broke. Discipline makes you strong. This rule is about proving your strength. Not through words but through consistent action. Words can be twisted. Promises can be broken. But discipline cannot be faked. Either you show up or you don't. Either you take action or you delay. Discipline is the evidence of true strength. When others look at you, they will know who you are not by what you say, but by what you consistently do. That reputation begins within yourself. If you prove your strength to yourself through discipline, the rest of the world will see it too. The choice is always yours. Excuses will always be available. They will always whisper in your ear, offering the easy way out. But discipline will always be there too, waiting for you to step up and claim. If you want a life of strength, clarity and respect, you must choose discipline every time. Not just once, not just when it's convenient, but as a way of life. Because the person who chooses discipline over excuses consistently becomes unstoppable. They build trust in themselves. They earn respect from others, and they achieve results that excuses could never deliver. So prove your strength, not with empty words, not with promises you don't keep, but with action. Prove it by waking up when you said you would. Prove it by finishing what you start. Prove it by facing the difficult tasks instead of avoiding them. Prove it by choosing discipline over excuses every single time, because that is the mark of true strength. The ability to stand firm in the face of weakness and choose the harder, but better path. And once you live this way, you will never again wonder if you are strong. You will know it, because you will see it in every choice you make.